Good evening, it's News Hour on Canal the English with me, Annette Fetesome, and our top stories for tonight. Another day of sporadic gunshots in the chief town of the Northwest region. City dwellers were forced to remain indoors. Rights group, the Network for Human Rights and Freedom in Central Africa, REDAC, has condemned the arrest of Professor Maurice KAMTO and other party comrades. Cameroon today celebrated World Customs Day amidst call to promote trade, travel, and transport across borders. And in sports, Cameroon will finally host the 2021 African Cup of Nations. Developments would be yours right ahead. Relative calm is said to have returned in the chief town of the Northwest region today after hours of sporadic gunshots. Traders were forced to close their shops and rush back home for safety. In the following report, Amber Gladys Dibang says the incident created panic. Her report.
The town of Bamenda this Tuesday fell into panic as gunshots could be heard from major quarters of the Bamenda 2 municipality. According to reports, the neighborhoods of My 20, Hospital Roundabout, Commercial Avenue and Bengui Road played host to multiple gunshots as inhabitants, after respecting the Monday ghost towns, were hoping to resume commercial activities this Tuesday. When news of the attack circulated, shops and other offices shut down, also known as Independence Square, was immediately deserted.
You don't hear them, no. You don't hear Amber God, no.
Contrary to the Bamenda 2 scenario, calm and relative ease seem to reign around in Nkwen neighborhood, with businessmen carrying out diverse commercial activities with relative ease. All attempts to get city dwellers react to the present situation has so far been futile. They preferred anonymity as a means of staying safe.
The arrest of Professor Maurice KAMTO, president of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement Party, is at the center of every debate. He was arrested yesterday in Douala alongside other party comrades. Our Gladys Dibang comes back to how it all happened.
Monday, January 28, 2019, remains another memorable date in the political history of Cameroon. The day Maurice KAMTO, president of the main opposition political party, the Cameroon Renaissance Movement, and other party figures were arrested in the country's economic city, Douala, and weeks off to Yaoundé. This is the compound of one of the party figures, Albert Zongang, in the Dogbon neighborhood, where the arrest took place. Roads leading to the neighborhood in the Douala 5 municipality were blocked, and the compound was surrounded by hundreds of supporters who were curious by the presence of dozens of security officers and armored cars that had stationed at the vicinities to monitor every movement, as suspicions were rife that Maurice KAMTO was in the building.
It's as a result of the fact that since morning, the national president of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement, who heard the excesses that were committed by the forces of law and order on its militants, had to leave from Yaoundé and come to the nation's economic capital to sympathize with them, and also to get himself implicated in the march. You saw him did the march at Ndokoti right up to that's Sonel Ndokoti, a lot from tradition to Sonel Ndokoti, and then today the officers of law and order came and surrounded the compound of Albert Zonga, and they have been making attempts to arrest him, just like they wanted to do the last November 6 in Yaoundé.
As militants and supporters of the party kept streaming into the compound for a meeting, the forces of law and order stormed the gate and ordered it to be opened. That was when Maurice KAMTO was picked up including Abel Zongang, Christian Pendai-Koka, Alain Fogue, the party's treasurer, and other party figures who sustained bullet wounds over the weekend protest, amongst them Celestin Jamin and Michel Doki. Some reporters like David Eyenge and Theodore Chopper were also amongst those arrested. Bike riders in their hundreds tried in their attempt to prevent the security forces from taking them away, but were sprayed with tear gas. The chaos led many to run helter-skelter, but some were also arrested and thrown into the van. The incident foiled the planned crisis meeting.
So they have come here tonight to pressurize the forces of law and order, to tell them that it's injustice, to stop the person that is on the right path, the man that has the interests of the nation at heart, the man that wants peace to reign in this nation, the man that wants reconciliation. So they have come out to say no. We say no to every injustice, and then we say it is time for justice and time for us to sit at the table of dialogue and talk.
Before the arrest, the National Deputy Communication Manager insisted that despite the intimidations, the CRM party is determined to move ahead.
We of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement are very determined to carry this country forward through a peaceful approach, and that is why we've never encouraged the carrying of arms by any armed group to fight the system in place. What we only want is for good laws to be put in place so that Cameroonians can live in a country that they will be proud everywhere they are in the world to say they are from this nation.
The arrest is the latest political turbulence to hit the country and comes several weeks after protest over the October 7, 2018 vote, where the Cameroon Renaissance Movement Party of Maurice Kamto occupied the second position.
The Network for Human Rights and Freedom in Central Africa, REDAC, has condemned the arrest of Professor Maurice Kamto and comrades. They were talking today in Douala as they met with pressmen. T. Morin reports.
The arrest and detention of the 2018 presidential candidate and president of Cameroon Renaissance Movement, Maurice Kamto, has been strongly condemned by the Network for the Defense of Human Rights and Freedom, REDAC. In a press conference in Douala Tuesday, REDAC, with its chair, Barrister Alice Com, called for the immediate and unconditional release of the barrister, University Professor Maurice Kamto and his entire comrades, and his entire party comrades, Pendai-Koka, Abel Zongang, president of another political party, Professor Alain Fogue, and other militants.
Quand on dit qu'on a franchi le Rubicon,
when we are told the red line has been crossed, I'm giving it back to government that they have crossed that red line. You cannot, after CAF was stripped of Cameroon, and the consequences on Cameroonians, the deceptions are still there, the shame, and instead to calm down Cameroonian, you instead shoot on harmless protesters. It's not possible. That's what we are calling crossing the red line.
vous ne devez pas être surpris de récolter la tempête.
While brandishing documents, REDAC maintains Cameroon has gone against international conventions and laws, which is against such arbitrary arrests. According to the Human Rights Organization, 50 persons were arrested in Douala, with 2 wounded by bullets, 25 persons whisked up in Bafoussam, 5 in Yaoundé, and 3 in Chang, all subjected to torture at the judicial pleas and groupement mobile intervention.
C'est que j'ai une question à poser à Monsieur le Président de la République.
I have a question to the President of the Republic, who took an oath just some months back to protect Cameroonians and ensure they have security. That was his roadmap. Months after, people are protesting, and what they do is shoot on harmless protesters. It's unacceptable.
Faire comme si c'était des lapins sur lesquels on a tiré.
The Network for the Human Rights and Freedom for Central Africa, REDAC, wants investigations to be opened to identify the men in uniform who exercised excesses by shooting on harmless protesters. They are equally demanding reports without delay on perpetrators of violence on Celestine Germain and barrister Michel Doki and other MAURICE militants who were wounded in the course of the protest. They want government to establish the facts and perpetrators of acts of vandalism on the embassy in France. Redag insists putting in place of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission is a solution to bring back the status quo.
After the ransacking of Cameroon's embassy in France, these demonstrations have pushed the French ambassador to Cameroon to react during an audience granted him by Cameroon's Minister of External Relations. The details of this with Christelle Catala.
The attack on Cameroon's embassy in Paris, France on January 26 has been described by French ambassador to Cameroon as regrettable. His Excellency Gilles Thibault was speaking shortly after an audience granted to him by External Relations Minister Lejeune Belambela. According to the French ambassador, Cameroonian authorities had requested for additional security measures, which was granted, but unfortunately did not prevent the protesters from getting into the embassy. The French diplomat added that he expects every individual across the globe to be responsible, given that we live in a civilized world. The damage in the embassy led to the arrest of 37 militants of the Cameroon Renaissance movement. 11 militants have been also arrested in Washington, D.C. by the police for attempting to enter Cameroon's embassy. There were equally reports of similar manifestations in Cameroon's diplomatic representations in Berlin, Germany, and Brussels in Belgium.
World protest march is gradually becoming a common factor in so many countries across the globe. Demonstrations have been witnessed in countries like Sudan, Zimbabwe, Venezuela, France, and others, where thousands of people take to the streets. These demonstrations, once more with Christelle Catala.
The wave of protest is currently sweeping through some African and South American countries in the world. The January 26 protest march by militants of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement Party add to the list of public worldwide demonstrations. Few days ago, several people were killed during protests in Zimbabwe after the government more than doubled the price of fuel overnight. Hundreds more were arrested as demonstrators took to the streets in the cities of Harare and Bulawayo. Burning tires have been used to barricade roads and block bus routes. Similar situation in Sudan, where thousands of demonstrators took to the streets and cities across the country after a child and a doctor were killed in clashes between police and protesters who called for the end of Omar al-Bashir's 30-year-old rule. The protests were triggered by price rises and cash shortages, but quickly developed into demonstrations against Bashir. In Caracas, Venezuela, thousands of protesters filled the streets last Wednesday, accusing embattled President Nicolas Maduro of monopolizing power and joining the nation rising opposition movement, demanding he steps down as the country reels from a crushing economic crisis, forcing millions to flee or go hungry. For more than 2 months, France has been experiencing one of the most significant social mobilizations in its recent history. Tens of thousands continue to take to the streets across the country to protest against rising fuel prices.
Cameroon has today celebrated World Customs Day under the theme Smart Borders for Seamless Trade, Travel and Transport. Not even the rains could stop celebrations that held today in Yaoundé. Tavi Clarkson.
Minister Louis-Franck Moutaze of Finance this midday presided over manifestations marking the 2019 celebrations of the International Customs Day. Taking the floor during the ceremony, Louis-Paul Motaze emphasized on the need to protect our borders, especially as fraudulent businesses are on a perpetual rise in our frontiers. It is imperative to make 2019 a year of smart borders. As concerns the world's customs body, the concept of smart means securing our borders, the need for performance, the easy-going of procedures, the management of risk, and the use of technologies. The surprise visitor, the heavy downpour did not in any way hamper the smooth running of the ceremony, as certificates were handed over to personnel who distinguished themselves in 2018. Others received epaulets, while some staff received the recognition of the custom family as they are going on retirement. The Director General of Customs, Fongot Edwin, has promised that his Customs Department will continue to do its best to meet up with expectations and challenges.
This reflects the fact that the expectations of travelers and businesses around the world are changing. As technology opens doors to new ways of communicating and doing business, there is a responsibility in the international customs community to facilitate global exchange in new ways. The International Customs Day is also the perfect opportunity for our administrations to express its gratitude to certain partners and customs personnel who have distinguished themselves by their commitment to promoting performance, integrity, and good governance.
The military march past, which took place under serious rainfall, crowned the ceremony. Appointments for yet another Custom Day celebration has been taken for next year.
This 2019, the Ministry of Environment wants to see the environment respected as major infrastructural development initiatives prosper across the nation. Officials in the ministry are fine-tuning strategies to forge ahead. Beatrice Gamo tells us more.
Man's livelihood circles around the environment. This as she depends on the forest, the plants, for foodstuff, medication, and her all. But unfortunately, few persons are conscious to stop acts that destroys the environment, such as deforestation, bushfire, soil degradation, pollution, amongst many. Intensifying actions to preserve the environment this 2019 and promote sustainable development, the focus of the staff of the Ministry of Environment, Nature Protection and Sustainable Development under the supervision of Minister Hele Pierre.
Environment is very, very important for us because our health, our economy, education depend on environment. So we have duty to protect our environment.
Investing more in the environment sector is important for her to effectively play a role in sustainable development. The goal, uplifting the challenges of the time.
There is a need for development activities within those sectors. There is a need for the major infrastructural development initiatives of this country to be carried out in a way that is respectful of the environment. I think that's a big challenge. But from 2018, we can say there has been a significant progress in terms of awareness and recognition within these sectors. For the year 2018, we issued 155 compliance certificates to private sectors, to development initiators who took a commitment to ensure that the activities they carry out will be respectful to the environment.
The objective of the Conference for Central and External Services under the Ministry of Environment, coupled with New Year wishes in Yaoundé.
We now talk sports, where Cameroon will finally host the 2021 African Cup of Nations and Ivory Coast that of 2023, and the host nation of 2025 will be Guinea. This is the final outcome of CAF's president visit to Ivory Coast since Monday, after discussions with Ivorian President Alassane Ouattara and Ivorian sports officials. And out of the country, thousands of Nigerians have fled from Boko Haram attacks into Cameroon, and in Zimbabwe, women have been urged to report any rape case from the military. This and more with our intern, Ladunette Ngomai.
About 13,000 inhabitants of the Rand city in Nigeria had to flee to Cameroon out of fear of attack by the Boko Haram militants. Report has it that this mass exodus was caused by the departure of the Cameroon forces who had come to secure the city after the January 4th explosion. Refugees reported that Boko Haram had promised to return to the city. 9,000 had fled to Cameroon, but we are not certain of those remaining. Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission has accused soldiers of using systematic torture in the crackdown on protests that broke out a fortnight ago, following a more than doubling in fuel prices. Recently, 6 women have been reported to have been raped by soldiers. But so far, only one attack has been reported, despite the numerous accusations. All the alleged victims are encouraged to come forward and report the case to the Zimbabwe Republic Police, situated all over the country. Gemsfield, the British mining firm, has promised to pay $7.5 million to people in Mozambique who went in court in London over alleged human rights abuse at the firm. Over 300 people complained of sexual abuse and unlawful detained by the Mozambican security forces and some private security guards. Gemsfield denies responsibility for abuse, but however owns up to instances of violence.
And this report brings us to the end of the newscast tonight on Canal the English. Thanks for watching.